live. Boards. Board games, board games, it's what we're talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this morning with a little bit of singing, and I have got another guest coming, and their first name is Calvin, and their second name is Wong. And that's the way I'm going to continue this song. And their next names are Saloon. And you will hear the end of the song very soon. Board games is what we're talking about. Board games. I'm not going to shout. Hey!
Hey, fantastic.
Thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to Aquasulis. It's lovely to have you. And yeah, good morning, Nick. It is lovely to see you. Is that good grief to my song lyrics? I assume so. Yeah. So I am Bez. This is, depending on where you are, it might be breakfast, it might be lunch, it might even be dinner time, or it might be sleeping time. I don't know where you are, but most of you are based in the UK, so let's call it the Bezzy Brunchy Board Game Blether. Of course, I have a wonderful guest coming back to the show, who is...
Calvin, I'm here. Hello.
That is true. Calvin is over there.
Am
we are going...
Or I might, if you flip your screen, I'd be over here, right? Like, never mind.
I mean, technically, when I'm pointing here, there's just like an empty space in my room. And like there's a bunch of boxes and they're not actually physically there. But then I look at my space, it's kind of like an alternate reality game. Do you know what I mean? Like I've moved myself and this portion, this kind of funnel of viewing of my room into your funnel of viewing in your room. And it's like we coexist in this space only in this fictional area. And we get together and then we can talk and other people can talk.
Oh, it's honestly magic. It's honestly magic. I still can't 100% wrap my head around like how magic the internet is.
Yeah, and I was playing, actually, need to give a shout out to Aquasolus, who made, Alex, I assume because you say, if people say something on Twitter, I assume that it's meant to be public knowledge. That, and yeah, good morning, Alan. And so, yeah, so Alex actually made a tabletop simulator version of the L deck, which is really cool. And so thanks to them, I was playing one of Xate's games on Tuesday, which was lovely. But let us get to the main usual topics, and starting off with brilliant things. What's a little thing that is brilliant? Do you have a brilliant thing, Calvin? Sorry to throw you in the deep end, but I mean, if you don't,
yesterday I played some Beat Saber and I was doing.
Oh no, that's the recent highlights. We're talking about brilliant things, like things that we often take for granted, like just things that everyone has access to. I'm going to just call it out. Cheeks.
You like cheeks?
I mean, if you didn't have, I mean, at a very pragmatic level, if you didn't have cheeks, you know, all your food and liquid would just spill out to your mouth. Drinking stuff would be really difficult. I mean, imagine if you just had a vacant hole, and if you had, like, you know, a beak, that would be a bit difficult. You know, I think that, you know, we are able to put our lips to water and drink.
I'm grateful for this water. This water is great. It's cold. It's right out straight.
I like how you're drinking out of a vodka bottle.
The glass keeps the heat in, or the cold in. But yeah, this is what's brilliant right now. Cold water is one of my favorite things. We always keep cold water in the fridge, because, yeah, And even though we have a really tiny fridge that we have to share with our housemates, one row is still dedicated to cold water because that's how important it is to us.
Oh. And so, morning to Xate, we were just talking about you and our playtesting together. Morning, well, afternoon, Jess. And Robin, it's lovely to see you. And I don't know why. So, moving on from the brilliance of cheeks, let's talk about recent highlights, listening to music and seeing the sights. Recent highlights. You talked about Beat Saber. What else have you been enjoying recently, Calvin? And everyone in the chat, feel free to share along. What are your recent highlights? What games have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Hades, which is this new game. Well, it's not new. It's been out for a while, but in early access, if anyone knows what early access is.
Oh, on Steam.
It's like beta, basically. You've been getting a lot of playtesting done. Good, amazing. Congratulations on getting tons of playtesting done. I've been playing Hades a lot. Hades is really fun. I thought I would be terrible at it, but they've tuned the difficulty levels quite well. You can there's a lot of ways that you can make the game easier, and so you can Hades, in case you don't know, is a game where you are trying to escape the underworld, and it's an action game, so you use like a sword or a bow or a shield, and you fight monsters as you attempt to escape out of Tartarus and Asphodel and Elysium and all those Greek places. And you can get help from the gods, like Aphrodite will show up and help you, or Hermes will show up and help you, or Zeus will show up and help you. And it's really nice. I really like it. Played it quite a lot. I also been playing. Robin being in the chat reminded me that we've been playing this game that she's designing, called Familiar Alchemy. She's currently hired me to write the rulebook for it. Not write, like edit the rulebook for it. And as a result, she's also invited me to some of the playtesting sessions, and it's really good. So what you are is that it's called Familiar Alchemy, right? So you play as an alchemist, and you grow plants, and then you harvest the plants for their leaves and their flowers and their fruit, and then you are trying to use that to brew potions, and you're competing with everyone else. So the potion for example, might have needs 9 ingredients to finish. And you can put ingredients on it on your turn, and the more ingredients you put on, the more points you score. And so you have to manage growing your plants. You have to manage putting them on the brews at the right time. And in the most recent update, Robin added a whole bunch of different alchemical transmutation effects that you can use with your spare ingredients. And so, for example, you can learn extra powers. You can transform your ingredients into different ingredients. You can swap an ingredient in a potion with one of yours. Lots of really cool fun effects. Herbalist, I guess, like a herbalist / alchemist type thing.
And I see it's already got a BGG page, which is quite exciting. So with the dates of 2021.
Yeah, I guess they're working for 2021. It's really, really cute. It's so cute. The art's not 100% complete yet, but there's it's based on Scottish mythology and folklore. So there's 4 different familiars. It's like a Will of the Wisp. There's a Selkie. I can't remember the other ones because I don't know Scottish mythology very well. But they're all amazingly adorable companions that you can use. And the plants are also very, very gorgeous, and the potions have this amazing art on them. I cannot wait for the game to come out. We'll probably go at Kickstarter, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure about the plans. Robin can probably fill you in more, but I am very excited for Familiar Alchemy because this most recent playtest I played, I was like, oh, this game.
So was that on Tabletop Simulator?
The one, I don't know if it's a public module. But I haven't.
Yeah, I'm assuming not, but just curious about the medium.
Yeah. And the last game I want to talk about is I don't know if you know about this actually, but it's a game that my friends Joey and Brian have been designing called Garbled. Um, it's a word and write game. It's really, really so a roll and write game. So like
Sure.
Yahtzee, right? So you have a pad, and then it says once Yahtzee is like when you get a pair, then you tick off pair, and you get like five of a kind, and you tick off five of a kind, right? And so in modern board games, you have that too, but all the different accomplishments that you can do in a more modern roll and write game. But in this one, what you're trying to do is you're trying to fill up like a scrap. It looks like the board looks like a Scrabble board. So you're trying to fill up the Scrabble board and get the vowels in the right places and like get consonants on top of each other. You're trying to make words and then you fill the board with words, and then you tick off all the various things. Like, oh, I filled the whole row, so you tick one off. Like, oh, I used like all the letters in the alphabet, so I tick that off. And it's really, really good game.
Sorry? The term word and write seems like a bit misleading though. And moving back to Robin's game, apparently it is on Tabletop Simulator, and so there got the comments straight from the horse's mouth, proverbially speaking. But yeah, when I think of word and write, surely if word is replacing the randomization aspect.
Oh, sorry, there is a randomization aspect. Because you have to, because you have a certain number of letter cards. They look like the L cards, actually.
No, so what I'm saying is that to me, if someone were to say, okay, I have designed a word and write, I would imagine that maybe, instead of having numbers, instead of having a card, the randomization aspect is maybe to flick to a different page of a book and have that is your random seed.
I'll explain it. So bring back those cards because bring them out in the camera. So the game has cards almost exactly like that. It has a letter on top and a letter below. So every round there'll be, I think, 16 of those cards, and then players take turns choosing cards to have. So if, let's say you had, at the end of the round, you'll have 4 cards. So you'll have 4 cards, 8 letters, and then you have to make a word using 4 of those 8 letters, because you can't use the top one and the bottom one at the same time. And there's always, and every round there's a theme for the word that you, so for example, the theme might be in the kitchen. So you can only make a word that the other players agree, yeah, you might find this in the kitchen, or the theme must be on holiday, or the theme will be, in the bathroom. I have not played the game very much, but the rounds that I did play of it, it's really good. I really enjoy it.
I'm not sure how I feel about there being more games where there's... I feel like the thing about the L deck was that it was the first deck of cards where it wasn't okay 2 letters and to use both of them, but to be fair, and there is definitely a lot of roll and write style games that I did for the L deck. So this one where you're filling up things and it's sort of an area control roll and write, which you But anyway, going back to the recent highlights, Nick has been enjoying mixing cement into mortar and just enjoying the tactile aspect, and so that sounds like a lot of fun. Jess wants to know quickly, what part of Malaysia are you in?
I'm in KL. Yeah, I'm from KL. I'm in KL right now. Yep.
Because Jess is in Bangkok currently.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, for me, my own recent highlights are, I got to see Chris and McCall briefly yesterday. We had a bit of a walk with Chris. Chris was proofreading I wouldn't say proofreading. Chris was blind testing the puzzle rule sheet, which I made some edits to and put in some sorts of photos in place of diagrams. It's just a quick way to get diagrams into the rule sheet. Just take the photo, put it in there, and we can redraw it later for extra clarity. That made me feel accomplished. and I managed to go to Lidl and Iceland, and at 9:30 at night, I saw literally 3 people in such a big supermarket. This supermarket, I don't know, it's maybe, I don't know, 20 meters by 20 meters, maybe 50, I don't know. I'm not good at measuring distances. It's really big. It's basically one of the biggest. It's as big a shop as you could expect, basically, given it's London.
How you compare to like the Essen halls? Is it like...
That's a good shout. So it's like Hall 8.
Okay, yeah.
It's
so
pretty big.
It's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, there were literally like 3 customers and maybe like 2 members of staff. So that was a real highlight. And then talking about games I've been playing, I only finished actually 1 game yesterday. The closest I got to playing something physically was watching Chris play Puzzle, which is a 1-player solo game. But I did play a couple of games of Ink and Gold because I realized that my premium BGA membership is going to end tonight. So I thought, okay, I better try Ink and Gold. And I managed to win on my second game. I was so excited.
I heard a lot about that game because obviously it was up for the Spiel des Jahres, right?
Probably.
So a lot of hype, yeah.
It's a really, really good game. It's just quite an old game. It's about pushing your luck. It's about, flipping over cards and when do you continue? When do you move out? I'm just looking it up. It's from 2005. And this is originally known as Diamant.
Okay. I'm thinking
what
of
you're thinking of it. Yeah. But yeah, this was a really, really good game. This is one of the classics. Like possibly this and Can't Stop are basically like the 2 best push your luck games out there, I would say. But that is that. And we've got big shouts for moving into 24-hour supermarkets, Ink and Gold. Yep. And having something that you can play with your kids is a lovely thing.
Bez, I was just about to say something about your L games, right? And I love how they all end in L, and I think that's very cute, very funny. My city is called KL.
Okay. So if it was kind of spelled phonetically, like Kayyell.
Yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Jess says KL is where we go for food holidays, better food than Thailand. I know everyone always says this about the place that they live. And it's also kind of cliche, right? It's like, oh, where I live is the best and everywhere else is terrible. KL is not great for many things, but it is probably, in terms of variety and quality, probably the best place to eat on planet Earth.
Yeah.
Because it's... Okay, here's the thing about KL, right? KL is the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. And every Malaysian knows that the best version of X dish, like whatever dish it is, probably isn't in KL. It's probably like, a 3-hour drive north if you want like pork noodles, or if you want like the best like nasi lemak, then you got to go to like Kelantan, which is like 3, 4, 5 hours away. All Malaysians know this. Like the best version of X doesn't have to be in KL, but it's really close, right? In KL, within half an hour, you can get something that's really, really close to the best version of it. So, if you don't live in KL and you just come here and you think, oh, I want to try good food, we can get like, within 10% of the best version of it. Anywhere here. Yeah. KL is like, some of the best food in the world.
Yeah, and welcome dealer Umbra to the chat. Makes me realize, the value of just flashing up the name of the game. And so that is Ink and Gold, which I was mentioning. So, like a lot of push your luck games, it's not quite as good in virtual environments as it is if you've got well, certainly not with strangers compared to if you've got people in your ears and encouraging you to go forwards or whatever. But yeah, this is a game that I've had the pleasure of playing both ways. And let's move on. It has been, firstly, thank you everyone for commenting. Feel free to ask questions as we progress along, share comments, all that good stuff. And now I'm going to ask you some questionably quick questions.
Ooh.
Okay, Calvin, today, did you have breakfast?
No, I haven't eaten anything yet.
You haven't eaten anything today?
Hmm.
Man, that doesn't seem good. I mean,
I woke up 10 minutes before the show. That's why I haven't eaten anything today.
Oh, wow. Your sleep schedule is really...
No, it's wrecked. It's completely wrecked. Yeah. Yes, I thought it was improving because yesterday I woke up at 1 p.m., like a very respectable 1 p.m. And I thought, okay, I'm trying to push it back before 12. I honestly function best when I wake up early in the morning. Like if I get up at like 9, 8, some respectable human hour, and I feel very productive and energetic. But it's a pandemic. My sleep schedule is completely destroyed. So I've been slowly pushing it back. Yesterday I woke up at 1, and then today I woke up at 4:45.
Oh.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah, it is about 5 p.m.
Yep.
Well, Xate says 8 is not a human hour. That's the middle of the last beautiful REM phase.
Yeah, but I don't know what to tell you, man. Like I hate waking up early as well, but I know that if I do, 6 or 7 is awful. Like no, but if I get up at like 8 when the sun's like just finished coming out, I feel like I have a great day. I will just, I get a lot done. I feel very energetic. Even if I just do nothing, even if I just play games the whole day, I still feel great. And I'm trying to get back there, but it's hard.
Aww. So this is going to be getting a little bit personal potentially, and feel free to refuse to answer or let me know that you're uncomfortable with it. But normally let's go back to 6 months ago, what forced you to get up?
Habit, really. Nothing forced me to get up. I like having days where I feel good. I like having days where I feel like I have energy. So I would get up at 9, 10, something, respectable. And then just do my day as normal, except it started at 10 instead of 4.
You're a freelancer, right?
Yep.
So, as you say, except for, I guess, social aspects, like you maybe want to see people, would you normally, 6 months ago, how many people would you typically see in a day, would you say?
D, my housemates, my cat. It hasn't really changed. Yeah, basically, yeah.
That is fair. Okay, tell me the last thing you ate.
Oh, yesterday I made wedges in my oven, potato wedges. They're really easy. You just cut potatoes into wedges, you coat them in olive oil and salt, stick them in the oven at 225 for 30 minutes. You have wedges. Yeah, really simple.
Yeah, I know wedges. I've made wedges. I'm going to be honest, I tend not to eat that much pasta, bread, and with potato, I'm far more likely to put potato into a dish on a pot rather than in the oven.
Oh, for sure.
If I'm actually cooking from raw ingredients, I'm far more likely to fry or stew than bake.
Yeah, just because I also noticed that I just had potatoes and they needed something to do with them. It's like, I still have them from the last shopping trip and they're about to go on the next shopping trip. So I just needed to use them up. Wedges hard. Yeah. Potatoes are the best. Have you been to Germany? The potatoes are amazing.
Well, speaking of Germany, yes. I mean, Xate says that they've still got jet lag after 20 years.
Yeah, for sure, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, of course you have.
Have you had the potatoes in Germany, Bez? Because you've
I
been to
have had a spiral potato. I had not had a spiral potato the first 2 times I went, but because I don't get the time to leave the stand. And the first time I was there, I went to the loo, and going to the loo, literally, it takes about an hour if you go in the middle of the day. I'm not exaggerating, because, the queue is just ridiculous. But yeah, Xate says the spiral potato is not German, it's just Essenspiel.
Yeah.
So
outside the the Spiel hall, you can have the mash. They have good mash. They have good potato salad. They have good baked potato.
Oh yeah, I've got potato salad from the most German of shops, the Lidl. Where last night was at the Lidl. Got there just after 9. Then it was 9:30 when I got out. I was like, oh man, I fancy going to Iceland just to check it out. I've got no space in my bag. The only thing I bought from Iceland was a bag of peas. But again, because it was so empty, I didn't feel guilty about just walking up and down every single aisle. So it's like, okay, now I know what's, cheap, so I can maybe buy it next week or in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah. I mean, there were days when I was in Germany that I literally the whole day I ate nothing but kartoffel salad. It's really good. It's so good. It's really bad, actually, that if you eat nothing but that, but it's so delicious. I love it.
Ooh. We've got Essen tips for anyone going to Essen. My tip for my second year was basically just that I tried going to the loo twice a day, during show hours. So first time I would go around just before it was about to open, make sure that's tight, and then drink a little bit less, and then go like maybe 5:30 when it's winding down, because at 5:30 then but
tea cares.
TK.
They used to go by Tiff, I think. Tiff cares.
No.
Oh really?
Oh, that's person who, the media person.
Yeah. So they gave me a great tip. They gave me a great tip last year. At the back of hall 6, where the food is, there's a gender neutral bathroom, but you have to go down some stairs.
Ooh. So is this the one that Xate is talking about? Maybe
I don't know. There's a hall. I cannot remember if it's hall 6, but there's a hall where there's like
apparently.
Okay. Cool.
The other questions.
And it's a gender neutral bathroom too, so excellent.
So, what was the last day you play tested?
What?
When did you last play test?
Familiar Alchemy, I said just now.
Okay. Yeah. But you mentioned. So the last day you play tested?
I don't know, 3 or 4 days back, I think. I'm not 100% sure. The days blur together.
How many days a week would you say that you work on your writing?
9 days a week. I work too much. I'm a complete workaholic. If you left me alone, I would just be like just last night, right? I was like, oh, I'm tired. I should go to bed. Because I played a lot of Beat Saber last night. So after you exercise, you feel sleepy. That's one of the main reasons that I exercise, is to try and keep my sleep schedule regulated. And I was like, it's 3 a.m, but I have an idea for my new thing. So I just started writing. And then it's like, Dee's like, what are you typing? I was like, oh, I just started working. And she's like, you fool. I was like, okay, I'm just going to switch off the computer and go to bed. And I was lying in bed. I was like, oh, I have a new idea. So I opened up my notes and I just started typing on my phone. I was like, no, stop. Oh, yeah.
Is it possible to get a sneak preview of what you were typing, or
yeah,
is
sure.
that not allowed?
No problem. There's a Osprey Games game called Wildlands, if you've heard of it. And Osprey has been nice enough to send me, I think, almost all of the Wildlands products. And so I was thinking of doing like a review of the game. But since I have so much Wildlands products, like I have the base game, I have the Unquiet Dead expansion, I have the Judge Dredd spin-off, I have a bunch of other map expansions and little things. Oh, that's Duncan.
Yeah, Duncan Malloy, nice person.
Yeah, he's lovely. I love Duncan. So I was thinking I would.
Well, I was going to say, is that Michael from Little Metal Dog Show and now Hub Games? I don't think it is, but it looks a bit like sure. Michael.
It could be. I don't know. That's a UK Games Expo, so it's possible.
Henry, this is meant to be quick. That's why this is questionably quick.
Well, okay. I'm just going to say that my idea is to review all of Wildlands in one go. So I don't talk about like each individual box. It's not like, so the idea is that the title of the review will be like the Visitor's Guide to the Wildlands, right? So it'll be not too long, hopefully about 700-ish words, so nothing like completely enormous, and just talk about all of the Wildlands products and which ones to get if you want to get them, to jump into, so if you want to buy one set, here's a set you should buy. If you want to buy like a few more teams, here's a few more teams you should buy. If you want to get some maps, here's some maps you can buy, and that's it.
Since you brought it up, give us the 30-second explanation. Is this some sort of skirmish game?
Yes. So it's a game by Eric Martin. Eric Martin? Is that his?
You mean Martin Wallace?
Martin Wallace.
Yeah, same person. Who, Eric Martin is the person who does Board Game News. Martin Wallace is this person over here in the blue shirt, talking there to Owen Duffy from The Guardian and another journalist. And Martin Wallace also made Steam and Tinner's Trail and Brass. Yeah, Brass.
Yes. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so it's a Martin Wallace game. So usually you think, he usually does Euro games, right? And why is he doing a tactical combat area control game? Well, it is a tactical combat area control game, but it's mainly to do with cards. You have multi-use cards, very Martin Wallace, and you don't have to beat up the other people. You can try and grab the crystals instead.
That's nice.
First player to get 5 points wins. You get a point for collecting a crystal. You get a point for beating somebody up. And every player has their own team. As you can see, the teams are flashing up on the screen now. It's a team of like 5 different characters, and they all have different stats and abilities. But it's a very robust, very compact, elegant system. There's not a lot of rules. You can teach it quite quickly. And then the teams are the ones that bring the variety and the,
And Nick, I'd be interested to hear about how Osprey were a part of your life before they were a game publisher. That's I think.
Nice. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I'm curious about Nick's statement there. We've got a lot of love for Martin Wallace, and let me pass on Salty Horse's question of how did it impress you? Did it form an opinion on board games in general? I'm not sure what exactly that question means. Don't know if you get what Salty Horse means.
Sure no, he's
asking Gatquasulis. Okay, sorry, I get that. Okay, apparently Osprey started off making little collectible cards that you get in packs of cigarettes and tea. Cards, not cars. And the cards were images of planes and aircraft. That sounds quite cool. So I think I need to flash down the questionably quick questions. This is certainly no longer being quick. And so the question is, was it quick? And I think the answer today is not particularly. I should actually pose that of you. Was it quick, Calvin?
It was pretty quick, yeah. I mean, compared to all the things that I've done. I was very rapidly just like scrolling through Twitter because you mentioned Owen Duffy, right? And I realized I haven't seen him for a while, and it turns out he's left Twitter. He's deactivated his Twitter account because I can't find him anymore.
Oh,
Which is really sad.
yeah, I could imagine Owen doing that because Twitter can sometimes become a bit aggravating if people are
Yeah.
dogpiling on you. Like
Yeah.
people are obviously
I wanna-
doing
but he's one of my good friends. I want to find him again. Is he on Facebook?
I will have to check after the
Yeah,
show. I don't know if we are Facebook friends, but yeah. So getting to the main topic, let's define what are we talking about. So writing in games, we're talking about there's all sorts of writing. There's writing the marketing, there's writing the rules, which actually you helped out with this one. Right, you did like all the rules editing for here.
That's Inkwell, right?
Yep, Dyson
That's
Ink.
the Dyson Ink.
Have you got one of these?
Yes, I edited all of the rules in that book.
And we've got writing for fiction, and we've even got writing when you write down, okay, who made this game? Because for most of the modern L games that I've got coming up, not in this box, but in the second edition box and in future boxes, you're going to have like an entire, like half a page, like half an A4 page that's kind of talking about, hey, this is a story of how this game was developed. And so that's a form of, I guess, narrative journalism. But of course, you've got your own journalism with the investigative journalism done by the one company that was messing people about, and which was quite a shock. But what writing are we talking about today?
Well, the thing is that I think the first thing to start off with is that how impactful and sometimes invisible games writing is to a game. And I think one of the main things is, like, for example, what you call the components or the elements of the game has to be written. Like, if you think about Ink and Gold, right? The game you just played. What's that game about? You have to try and go and find the gold, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So the fact that it's about going in and finding the gold immediately creates connotations of exploration and risk, right? And danger, right? So just from the words ink and gold, you have already got multiple, like, unsaid, right? Like implicit things that are being expressed through those words. So if the game was called something else, if it was called Venezuelan Hospital, it would be a completely different idea, right? You know, so people might think, oh, treatment. They might think maybe funding. They might think maybe resources. So the words that you use in your game are important.
Sure. And I know that Jeff Engelstein of the Ludology Show actually did a really interesting instigated a really interesting scientific study based on, if the theme was a little bit different, how would it affect the game? So you've got this theme of adventurers going in, trying to steal the gold, essentially, like Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones style, and avoiding the snakes, avoiding the boulders, avoiding the crazy zombies. But what if it were a game about going into a burning building and trying to save victims, and then there's things collapsing about you? What if there were no theme? And so they basically used these three ideas and had a bunch of people, and then they found that indeed it not only affects how they feel about the game, but it affects the way that people play.
Yes.
The other parts of the study showed that as people played more and more, the theme became less relevant to the way that they play, but it does help in bringing those people in and setting the expectations, at least initially.
Yes, for sure, definitely, because people have a reflexive emotional connection to whatever the theme is about, right? And this is, I think, I know we're diving into the deep end really, really fast, but I think this is really one of the things that I think board game publishers don't think about enough. They always think about, oh yeah, I mean, everyone, you ask anyone in publishing, like now, oh, the rule book, yes, the rule book is very important. What does the back of the box say? The back of the box is incredibly important because that's what brings people into the game. What we put on BGG is incredibly important. You know, that 500-word write-up about what the game is, because it's like going to be the starting point for a lot of people. But I think they don't spend enough time thinking about the words that they're using to describe the game initially, the theme, like you said. Like Ink and Gold, I'm sure is a very good game, but the theme to me is, I'm trying to find the right word, but I don't think they should have gone with that theme, because it's basically a game about plundering the temples of South America, right? And they could have got that, like you said, with a much more positive theme. Like, what if you go in to rescue people from a burning building? You know, you would get the same sort of gameplay experience. Maybe not in the push your luck game, because then it feels a bit like, you know, what do you save versus what? Maybe not people then. Maybe you're trying to save artifacts from a burning museum.
Oh, yeah, that would be good. Like Library of Alexandria. I know that Carla Kopp of Weird Giraffe did that.
Yeah. The original French theme was a nondescript cave with diamonds. Yeah, okay, great. You know, so you go into a cave, you trying to get the diamonds out, and you're trying to survive whatever pitfalls are in the cave. Yeah, that seems good. I have another example of a game that I think uses its theme in a really good way, which is Dice Hospital. And Dice Hospital is a game about you run a hospital, right? And the patients are all dice. That's why it's called Dice Hospital. So if you roll the dice and they roll a 1, then they're really sick. And if you roll the 6, then they're really healthy. Right? So then you have different rooms to treat. Like, so you have a room to treat yellow dice, and you have a room to treat green dice. And then you have doctors that specialize in working on dice that are from 1 to 3 and all that. And I think the reason that this theme is really positive is because it's a game about helping the people who come into your hospital. The game doesn't have to tell you it's bad to let your patients die. Automatically, people will be like, no, I don't want any of my little dice to die.
For sure.
So it promotes play of a certain type, right? Whereas usually, if you played something like Agricola, you'd be like, oh, I don't need any wood. I'm just going to leave the wood over there. But if you're playing Dice Hospital, you're like, oh, I can't not take the patient. If I don't take the patient to my hospital, they'll die. You know, yeah. So I think the way that you theme your game will change, like you said, as you know, through Jeff.
But I think it's super important that the mechanisms do marry up with that, because, for example, if you've got what's Stone Age? Is that the one I'm thinking of? So in Stone Age, there's the big thing where you can actually just starve your people and essentially feed them stone, because the penalty for not feeding your people isn't so high. And so in the end, you kind of feel, well, I'm going to run this broken strategy, which kind of feels non-thematic. And fundamentally, the theme of the game should marry with the mechanics, because in Agricola, if you don't feed your people, there's no way to get out of that. You're taking massive negative points. And okay, you just go begging. It's not like your people actually die or anything, but you get some major penalty. And so I appreciate something like that a lot more than, something like Stone Age, let's say.
Personally, I think also, I put this thing in my mouth and I realized it was a massive mistake.
State says they always killed her dice. Let me know if you actually have won using that strategy. We've got... It's odd that you're penalized for specialization. Yeah, that scoring at the end is a bit... Oh, apparently State always wins by killing their people. So there you go.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. If that's the
Is
experience,
it?
is that the experience? No, if for him, if that's the experience
For
that
her.
he wants to have, yeah. Because I do my best to end the game on 0 deaths, and if I don't win, it doesn't matter because I saved
No,
everything.
Saints is saying that they kill dice.
What?
In Dice Hospital, they kill their patients. And that kind of being able to win, I didn't realize that that was a possibility. Being able to win by always killing dice does seem a little bit odd to me.
Sure, what strategy he's talking about?
She.
Sorry, I'm not sure what strategy she's talking about.
But yeah, maybe we could have. I don't know if it's online. Like basically only killing 7 per game and only with the expansion. But I guess that's a separate thing of writing and mechanics and theme and mechanics kind of tying together and working well together. That feels like its own separate point. Like you were talking about just writing, where here on Stone Age, what BGG has started is these little taglines where for Stone Age it says, travel to the time of hunters and gatherers in this classic game of tools and tribes. And for Spirits Island, it's island spirits join forces using elemental powers to defend their home from invaders.
Yep.
And that little bit of flavor, putting it out there and setting the tone, whether or not the mechanics meet those expectations is a separate story, but certainly the writing can set that tone. So I guess we're going to focus mainly. Are we focusing mainly on writing that's thematic and flavorful today? Because marketing and rules could be its own topic down the line, I feel like.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So let's separate it out into 2 different things. So today we will keep it on thematics and stuff. So for me, another thing that's sort of overlooked is the specific wording on like cards. It's specific wording on like, for example, if a card says roll all your dice versus re-roll all your dice. Obviously, that's 2 different meanings, and you might argue that, yeah, that's obviously different, right? But sometimes it's not quite as obvious as that. Like for example, sometimes the game might say place all your dice versus reset all your dice. What does that mean in the context of the game, right? And the word reset obviously has a much different connotation, even if it means functionally the same thing as place. So finding the right words to put on components is also a very important part of games writing that I think doesn't get recognized or thought about enough. Because the main thing that it does is that, like I said, it helps people feel a certain way about the game, and it also sometimes it could create like a very specific expectation for them, which aids them in learning the game. All right. So, for example, if we have that hypothetical saving people from a burning building game, if you use the word rescue rather than the word find, the two meanings are completely different, even though if the rules will be the same, right? Like spend an action to find a person versus spend an action to rescue a person versus spend an action to locate a person. Like, do we really need the word locate there? It's a bit too complicated. Why don't we just go with rescue? So these are decisions that if someone like me is brought in early enough in the game's development process, I can advise on the right words to be using. Right?
Sure.
Because people think, oh, when you write the rules, the game is complete and then you just write the rule book. And that's not true most of the time. If you involve someone, doesn't necessarily have to be an external person. It can be you if you're designing your own game. But if you start thinking about the process early, then that helps a lot. The fact that there is no standard language about those things drives me up the wall. For example, turn, phase, and round get used in many different and sometimes contradictory ways by games. Yes.
And the thing is, as Calvin was saying, with rules, and especially in terms of games when they're passing on information, it's hypercritical that these things are regular, that these things are consistent. And so if I use the word rescue, for example, or I use the word locate, there's maybe reasons why I should use rescue rather than well, I can't actually think of a word that's as good as rescue off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But let's say there might be another word that would be even better if we actually sat and pondered it maybe in a week's time. Oh, yeah, that would be a great word for that hypothetical game.
Sure.
Why was I even spending my energies thinking about that hypothetical game? Damn you, Calvin. I should have been thinking about real games. But in all seriousness, whatever the reason, there is a flavorful reason why you choose the word, for example, flying over gliding over like in Magic the Gathering, horse riding and flying are functionally the same, but horse riding was in Portal, and flying, it's just more flavorful. You fly over the people, you evade them, and that is where the flavor comes in. But then for the rules, you do need to have that consistency. But let's have the let's make that choice thinking about the connotations of the words we use.
For sure. Someone says hypothetical in the comments. Yeah.
What do you think of Magic the Gathering? Would you hold it up as a great example of flavor text? So if you look at the card, you've got this rules text, and then under a little line, you've got in italics the flavor text. Our sanctuaries must be the beacons of reason and calm, or else they will fall. And it gives you a little idea into the character of this Draneth magistrate, for example.
Yeah, I think that Magic aesthetically is one of the best games in the industry. Because they spend a lot of time and thought and resources on making their cards look good, sound good. Yeah, it's a really good example of writing. And especially if you look at their rules writing, they've had to define so many things over the game's like 20, 30-year history, that the rules document, you can't even call it a rule book anymore, right? Because it's constantly being updated and stuff, and it doesn't actually come with the game. Like, you have to look it up. Like the rules document of Magic the Gathering is really good. I mean, can you imagine like buying a game and it doesn't come with a rule book? That's how established your game is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Have there not been a lot of CCGs and LCGs that have gone into that model, though?
No, but when you buy, like, for example, Netrunner, right, the base game comes with a rule book, but, you buy it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that if you buy, like, a Magic starter set, there's no rule book in it. Is there?
No, there isn't. Well, there is a kind of starting intro thing that they've started putting into beginner products, and Vom Krieg Lovely too says that they haven't played for nearly 20 years and they could still tell all of those things straight away. There is a rules document online, as Calvin says, but there is no physical rule book that has all the rules of Magic, unless you choose to print it out yourself. Yeah, good for the environment.
Yeah, for sure. What was I going to say? Yeah, so something like Magic deciding what to call their terms. Oh, this was a really interesting example recently. So there's a thing in Magic called mill. Do you know about mill?
Yeah. It's when you get someone to discard cards from the library into the graveyard, also known as, in common parlance, the deck into the discard pile.
Yes. Okay. So the reason it's called mill and has been called mill for decades is because I think the original card was called millstone or windmill or something like that, right?
Millstone.
Yeah, is it? I'm not sure. But originally the card was called, millstone or windmill, and the name just sort of stuck, right? People just started by saying, oh, mill 3 cards or like mill 2 cards. but the word never actually appears on actual Magic cards because that's not the official term. Because like if you go to look at Millstone, it says target. Target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into the graveyard. So that's the term. That's there was no term. We just have it.
And then the final one, which I really appreciate, they started using the gender neutral they in M19.
Nice. Okay. And however, recently, as in the last month or so, they finally gave in. And if you look at the right, on the right-hand side, it says target player middles 2 cards.
Wow.
So for decades, they resisted using the word mill in their cards because they were like, oh, no, the official term is not mill. But they realized after 20 years that they couldn't come up with a better term that players understood. So they just went with it. I think that's a really cool example of what we're talking about here, right? Like, because if you have a term that everybody understands, don't mess with it.
That is almost just looking up the Magic the Gathering comprehensive rules. It says 199 pages.
Yeah.
To be fair, like the content only starts on page 5, but and there is probably about 20 pages, but it's still a lot of rules. But this has to cover basically every single keyword and every single possibility, which you aren't going to get within the course of a typical game. I feel like we're deviating from the main.
Oh, no, we're not. Actually, this is completely what I'm talking about, because you need to have a specific language that you use when you talk about games that needs to be consistent, that needs to be understandable. Yeah, sometimes you just have to accept the organic language the community creates, form creates. It's very true. But what if, right, everyone in your company or your country or the place that you're from thinks that a round has many turns, a turn has many phases. Right? This is like right? But let's say there's a community of gamers that you're trying to reach in another country. This is completely hypothetical. But to them, a phase has many turns and a turn has many rounds.
No.
And this is not even like completely all that hypothetical. One of the biggest games in the industry, Twilight Struggle, uses turn to mean round and uses round to mean turn. Right? So if you and I, Bez, were playing Twilight Struggle, you would play cards and that's your round. Then I would play cards and that's my round. And then once we've played a lot of rounds, then that's the turn. And I hate it.
Yeah, I think that, as Aquilus said earlier, we should standardize these things. To me, one person takes a turn, everyone plays its round, and I don't really know about phase. But I feel like the reason I said we were diverging is because originally we said we weren't going to talk about rules so much, but we were more marketing.
We are still talking about the thematics of it, but I'm trying to illustrate why sometimes it's difficult to come up with a thematic reason that works for all players, right? So if, for example, if we were making, like, going back to the hospital example, some people might view, oh, apparently killing patients is good, or to like a more nebulous example, like I said that I'm not comfortable with the theme of ink and gold because of the plundering stuff, but some players will be like, what's the problem? You're going in there, you're explorers, so it's possible to paint over something that's like plundering with the terms exploring, which is obviously much more positive, right?
Yeah.
All right. Or something even so innocent as Catan, like Catan was brought up earlier. The Catan had to change its name recently, in case anyone doesn't know. It's no longer the Settlers of Catan. It's just Catan. Why? Because it turns out settling is not good. Going to someone's land and settling it and calling it your own is terrible. So But at the same time, settler as a word still has a fairly positive connotation in the English language, right? It means somebody who's like a frontiersman, an adventurer, someone who goes out to the front and like uh, is brave and dares things. But the action of doing all these things is negative if the land is not populated. Now, the reason this is important is because I think you have to start thinking about these things when you design games, because I think it's very important to design games that are socially responsible. I have a friend who's creating a space game where you go out and you do things to planets in order to make them your planets. What's the word that you use there? Colonize has a very ugly history in the English language and in human history. Settle, same thing, right? Conquer, it's worse. What's the word that you use? And you realize how ingrained into the English language are all these terms that you think of. So now he has to come up with a new term, and you discover only works if if you didn't know about the planet's existence before. You see, that's the thing. You tell players to discover the planet, but they know the planet's there. It's not discovery. Right? So that's one of the issues that he's having right now, is that he's coming
the thing is that it's a 4X game. These typically are called explore, exterminate, exploit, and expand was the second one normally. And so two of those things. So okay, you're exploring, that's a nice thing. Okay, you're expanding, okay, well, that's fair. Okay, maybe you're expanding your people. Okay, so now you suddenly exterminates, like that's a horrible thing, and it ties into this really ugly truth that in the Settlers of Catan, and to tie into that, I don't know if that is the real
reason. That is really why Catan changed its name. So
is it really? Are you sure it wasn't just because of Catan is a stronger term for marketing? I mean, I feel like
pretty sure that's why.
I feel like the Settlers of Catan versus Catan, if people just call it, a one-word name, having fewer words surely is better also for marketing, which might have been a big reason. I would like to think that they thought about what you're saying, but I'm not 100% certain. Not sure if you have any inside knowledge on that one. But
functionally, it doesn't matter, right? Functionally, it doesn't matter what their intent is, and what the outcome is not the same thing.
And certainly, as Xate says, in some countries it's Die Siedler von Catan, or I can't remember what it is in French, but Settlers of Catan only works in one place. But anyway, let's not get bogged down in that one thing. As you're right, but what were we even talking about?
Words. What words to choose when you talk about games?
The fact that and colonialism is a really horrible thing, and that in 4X games, you've got the exterminate and the exploit, which is all about you going in there and exterminating people, and then exploits. You are exploiting the land, exploiting that planet, and it is, from a game point of view, it has good aspects for the dynamics of the game, and beating up other people. It's fun, like this high conflict. It's kind of an interlocking web. It's interesting. It's
but for sure,
exploits. It's got an engine building, but it is really ugly.
People think that might think that this conversation is getting very lost in the weeds, but for me, this is actually very fundamental when you think about the language of games and the language that games uses, and the fact that 4X is such a commonly accepted term in the gaming world. But the language of imperialism and colonialism is baked into our entertainment. Is something that we should be fighting. And this is something that we should be thinking about, at least peripherally aware about, so that exactly. Thank you. So I think that we have to be conscious of it in order to change it, because it should be changed. Decolonizing board games is probably the single biggest challenge facing the industry. It's systemic and endemic to board games, yes. And it only starts if people are aware of it to begin with, and importantly, don't dismiss it as just some fringe, very what's the word I'm talking about? Esoteric,
Yeah,
very
like
out
it's
there.
not an overreaction to say that yes, these things were bad in the past, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't accept them as the way things are, because
It's not
if
even in
we
the past;
examine
they're
this,
ongoing now. That's the thing, right? Like the thing is, like, I have this thing where, and this is a slight sidetrack, but I don't like it when games are made by people who are not from those cultures. So, if, for example, a team of all French people want to make a game about Japan, I don't think that's right. It's not good, and the reason I think it's not good is because there's a very long history of the West stealing from East Asia. But if they want to make a game about ancient Egypt, that's slightly different because there are no more ancient Egyptians, right? So it's not something that is currently an ongoing harm. Now, I'm open to being corrected by current Egyptians. If the Egyptians living today still feel like they have issues with ancient Egypt being used as a cultural reference point in games, I'm willing to listen to them. Is my accent Malaysian? No. This is very not a Malaysian accent. I have a fairly Britishified accent. I
and
don't know why I have it. I just have it. What was I going to say? Yeah. So I think that people just need to be aware of and start thinking about these things, and on a very fundamental level too. When you start designing your game, that's what I mean. So we're talking about writing in games, right? And so writing, when you start to think about what is the story of my game, what is the actions that my players are taking. You need to think about this. You need to start thinking about, like, the words that you're using and the implications of the actions that you're choosing to have your players do.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a big minefield, and I think we've already addressed some of the pitfalls of the themes that you choose and the fiction that you write, because certainly perpetrating, or what I should say is glorifying some egregious actions, can definitely have real world ramifications.
Yeah, for sure. Because
If
if you
we
spend your whole life in games thinking that colonization is fine, and invading a country and exploiting people's resources is fine, then you're less likely to think that it's bad, right? Like, I was just thinking about this for video games, but in board games is also sometimes true. Like, the use of violence as a method of problem solving,
and
right?
my friend Jay, I'm going to call them Jay, just using one letter, as I sometimes do when it's like, okay, I don't want people to know. You can know about me, but anyway, so Jay doesn't like games where people kill each other, or also they don't like games where you turn one resource into another resource into to kind of turn it into money. That's kind of just more a style thing. But like when you say, okay, we don't like it when people are beating up on each other or killing each other, but then you look at all the games out there, it's like, wow, there's so many games that are about that. And
Yes.
we are moving away from it a little bit in the maybe past 5 years. We have had some amazing party games like The Mind. It's been amazing. And games that are about birds flying, or but even games that are Spirit Island, which is a great anti-colonialist game. It is basically about beating up on these aggressors. Sure, it is a defense thing, but that is still kind of why are there so many games which are so high player conflict? Why is it that people don't accept the benefits of low player conflict and kind of people doing their own thing and kind of subsistence farming? Agricola managed to do so well.
Yeah, for sure. These are conversations that are worth having, and I actually think that they are very fundamental to the games industry. more of a, yeah, Santa Maria is a great example. I think Aporta games just had a sort of a blind spot when it came to that, when they made that game, because I actually think that they're decent human beings, but you know, it's just that sometimes they don't realize that these themes are so harmful because they're so naturally ingrained, right? Like, I'm sure everyone would agree that if you made a hospital game where the goal was to kill your patients, that's terrible, because everyone, agrees that that's terrible. But you don't. The problem with conversations like this is that you don't have the same starting point for everyone. People, you might say colonialism is bad, and some people go, "Oh yeah, but that was in the past," and you're like, "No, the effects of colonialism are ongoing today." And then, or you might say things like, "Oh, you shouldn't make games about, about the Opium Wars, for example." And they're like, "Why? It's just a war. It's like every other period in history. We made games about the Vietnam War," and I'm like, "Yeah, maybe you shouldn't do that either." The normalization of things because they have already occurred is a problem in the games industry.
I mean, I think that if something's leading with the mechanics, I think that this is really interesting that Christian Osby, the designer of Santa Maria, was on board with Xate doing the retheming as a garden version.
Yes.
And that makes a lot of sense when your inspiration is that thing. But certainly, I think that it's very harmful to say, hey, let's not make a game about wars. Let's not make a game about bad things.
Oh, no, for sure. I
think the thing is, the more painful a theme is, and the more real world damaging a theme is, I believe, the more we should consider and treat it with respect. Maybe not reverence, but if we are making a game about opium wars, okay, so there is a game I've seen games at Essen which are incredibly trivializing of race and something that's actually pushing people towards judging people based on what they look at. And I think that's really almost disgusting. I don't know if that's too strong a word, but I am personally disgusted by that, where it's kind of saying, okay, let's make an assumption about what these people are. But when we've got something where it's, obviously I'm working on Seize the Power with Tis Creel, which is about discrimination and subjugation of power, because I believe that games are not just frivolous activities. They are, things that can cause us to reflect upon the world. But like comedy, there is a danger if you start making jokes about racism, for example. If you start making jokes about racism, is it now bringing it to the point
trivializing it? Yeah.
Thank you. Is it trivializing it, or is it allowing people who have been affected by racism basically all their lives to be able to kind of,
joke about it in a cathartic fashion, right? Like, no, I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that these topics must be off limits, but I'm saying that the way that you approach these topics must be thought about. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to make a game about, the Vietnam War," and then just introduce an element where killing civilians gives you points. It's disgusting, So if you wanted to make a game about the Vietnam War, then you have to really think about all the ways in which that war affected and continues to affect that country. And you really have to think about that when you design your game. And you can't just design a bog standard risk-alike where both sides roll dice, because that's irresponsible and dangerous.
Going through the comments, Xate says, going back to sometimes the designer does develop the mechanics but not the theme. Vom Krieg says, like I did, conflict simulations can be didactic and exploratory tools for armed conflict and history. It's very important to games. Conflict simulations as didactic and exploratory tools for armed conflicts and history are very different to games that trivialize or lionize conflict. Yes, agreed. Respect is key. And there's sometimes conflict games turn into anthropomorphic animals in World War II make it more palatable. And I kind of see where they're going for, and certainly I think that there's something nice about Usagi Yojimbo. Are you familiar with this comic? So Usagi Yojimbo, it's based in feudal era Japan, where there were samurais and the master. It was kind of the end of that era where people were becoming Ronin, and it is written and drawn and everything by an American Japanese person who comes from that culture themselves. But I think the fact that they make it all anthropomorphized, is kind of reinforcing the idea, okay, this is not the reality. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. But I'm not sure that anthropomorphizing something then absolves you of all responsibility. The other thing that Aquasulis, Alex kind of makes a point, let me know if you prefer being called Aquasulis or Alex, how much of it is about the treatment of the theme? Is it okay if the effect of colonialism is highlighted?
Yeah, for sure. Because if you think about it, if you make a game where you're trying to highlight the effects of colonialism versus if you make a game about conquering and invading a country when it could easily have just been about gardens, those are completely different approaches, right? If you make a game about, let's say, for example, if I designed a game about colonialism, the colonialism would already have happened. You're not going to be playing the people on the ships going to the countries and conquering the locals. All that's already happened. And what I would do is then I would make a game about how, hundreds and hundreds of years of colonialism has shaped and affected the country. And the people, the players would be maybe factions of the local people trying to survive. And then even after colonialism is ended, how the effects continue throughout the game. Yeah. So the thing is that the other issue is that when you make a game, a lot of the time people think that the game should be fun. I don't agree.
Yes.
Sometimes if you make a game, sometimes the purpose could just be to illustrate or highlight something that is, it's to show stuff that has happened in the world. It's like a statement of art more than like a fun game. But the thing is, if I want to make a game about colonialism and it's fun, is that the right message that I want to send to my players? So hard to say. But which is sort of the problem also is that game publishers do want to make games that are fun because games that are fun sell more than games that are not fun. So
yeah, I mean, we've got something like Holding On the Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. It's really ambitious. It's basically saying, hey, let's look at someone in palliative care. They're going to die. You're just playing this game to explore their memories, to make sure that they are comfortable. And it's not done as well as the publisher might hope. Let's put it that way.
I didn't play that game because it would be too painful for me personally, the theme. So, but I appreciated them trying it and trying it in a serious way, And I think that there's still room in the games industry for people to explore things like that, right? To explore difficult, painful, serious topics in game form, But also, if you do want to make, light, when I say light, I don't mean the game is light, but like the theme is light, games about gardening or games about raising animals or games about, making junk food or games about baking cakes, go ahead, And I think it's great.
And even those light themes can be treated in a very respectful manner.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a few more comments on the topic of colonialism and bit caught with the Holding On the Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. I bought it when it came out at Essen. Honestly, to some extent, it didn't matter to me how well they might have succeeded on what they were trying to do, but it mattered that they were trying to do something, that Michael and everyone involved was really respectful to the people. When dealing with problematic themes, I think there's a limit to how much you have a message. When you only use mechanisms and don't resort to a written statement in the rulebook, I kind of agree with that, because, yeah, obviously a written thing at the end can be very important, but I think there's also an aspect of whatever you're actually doing as the player, whatever your core activity is, you are normalizing that, and you are defining victory in any game, in any ortho game where there's a measure of success. If you've got to do a thing to be successful, then that thing can be seen as good. So in Gandhi, decolonization of British India, so 3 players are trying to shape the post-colonial India, and 1 player is the colonizer. So I've not really played that game, but if there is a game where 1 player acts as the slaver or 1 player plays as the colonizer, and then it's a competitive game between the enslaver and the slaves, is that kind of casting them both? It's almost like the game is essentially saying, hey, both of these are viable things to do, and we are saying that both of these approaches are valid, which is really...
The thing is, right, like I could see I haven't played that game, but in something like that game, if you show people and you explicitly talk about it, by playing the British faction and seeing the incentives that the British faction has for performing these actions and the way in which they use these actions that benefits them, we show you why colonialism happened, the reasons for it, and we want you to think about it. And that's fine. Like I'm sort of fine with that. But to use a more simple example, World War II games, right? A lot of them have you playing as the German faction in that game, but they might as well just be army men, like for the amount of depth and political history that the games have. You just have one side that's green and one side that's gray, and that's it. Because they don't ask you to think about why that is, and why the war happened and all that. They just use it as a convenient backdrop to put a conflict game with minis or whatever. I have a friend who is German who won't play World War II games because of that. He doesn't like that the conflict that still has impacts in his country to this day is so trivialized by the board games industry. To the fact that they don't even think about or interrogate the root causes. It's just toys, right? Like it's just it's a fun conflict that we can stick in our game.
Yeah, and we've got Xates, who's in Germany. Yeah, does make that point. There's a comment that if you've got a statement in the rulebook, only the rules explainer will read it, and so that's where I guess we get into flavor text on cards, or something that is maybe something where you've got a player handout where it's a player sheet, and if on this player board,
or even just what you call the cards, right? Like instead of calling it, for example, gather public support, you could call it, brutalize innocent civilians.
Like kind of addressing the reality of the situation. We've got Vom Krieg, who says, yes, they've not played a World War II game that makes you roll each turn to see if your SS units just stop advancing and spend a turn murdering civilians, because these are the realities of what's happened. But you are kind of whitewashing it, to use a slightly ugly term.
Yeah, you're painting it over, right? You're brushing it out. It's like, it didn't happen. We don't need to think about it. We just wanted a fun theme for our game.
Yeah, you're painting over it and you're ignoring the realities. One more question is it okay to make players only able to win when they do something that's obviously terrible? I mean, if
I think if the players can refuse to do it and then end up losing, yeah, for sure. If one thing that I might do there is I might make that game cooperative. Let's say it's a cooperative game about exploring space, right? And then you can only win if you exterminate this planet and all of its native people, all of its inhabitants. Players can refuse to do it, and then you don't win the game. But then, so that could be a good game to think about, like the effects of colonialism and how easy it is to do.
I don't know. I feel like any time that a game says, "Oh, you shouldn't be," I mean, when you start playing a game, when you say "do this thing to win," I feel like you've bought into the magic circle, and I feel like if in this game brutally murdering the people is the way that I win. Once I have agreed to play this game, then to my mind, at least,
in my idea, you spring it as a surprise at the end. Of the game.
And I don't know if that's okay, because I feel okay. So we have a real world example of that. I don't know. Are you familiar with Train?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just bring it up for those who don't know of Train. Find some pictures. Massive spoilers, but you will probably never get the chance to play this game because there is only one copy in the world. So Brenda Romero made this game, and the idea behind this game is that it's a pick up and deliver. You've got little people, you're sending them to destinations, and over the course of the game, you realize that these are actually people that you're sending to concentration camps. Now, this was I want to call it an art piece, because if you play it as a game to win, and if you were deciding to play it as a game to win, I believe that saying, okay, well, I guess it reinforces the fact that you are allowed to stop playing a game at any time. Your real world emotional well-being is more important than any set of rules. And even in real life, like, you always have the right to refuse consent. And I think, entering into Magic Circle, agreeing to play a game is basically giving consent. Just going to mute you for a minute. It's like there's washing up or something on your end, Calvin. So basically talking about the consent of the game, if I say, okay, from a very vague thing, if I say, okay, we're playing Gwibble, you need to shout a word from using a letter from each card, you are consenting that for the next 10, 15 minutes, that is going to be your focus, that's going to be something that you're thinking of, that you're going to contribute to that game. If I say, okay, we are going to play Scrapyard Robots, you're consenting that if the rules of the game say you can do this, that you can't do that the numbers go up for this reason, you're going to agree to every single rule. Now, by the same token, if it's in real life, going into the topic, yes, of consent for sex, consent for friendship, just consent for even things that people might not realize that you need consent for sitting in the same room with someone and having a conversation. Now I'm in a situation where I am sometimes with Chris and McCall, and maybe Chris says, you know what, I'm feeling like I want to have a break and be in the other room, and it's okay. You are allowed to refuse to say, you know what, I need to extricate myself. And when you've got something really troublesome, like a game that's about slavery, I don't know why I'm holding this up, because there's no troublesome games in this book. But if we are playing a game about slavery or the decolonization of India or anything along those lines, then you are allowed to withdraw your consent. But if you have agreed to play this game and the rules are there, I think that it is almost your imperative and obligation as a player to play to win to some degree. Because if you say, okay, I'm going to not use this thing which would get me more points to win, instead I'm going to do this other thing because I think it feels more nice or whatever. I would argue that in some ways you are breaking the magic circle of the game. That's another notion, and I know we're going all over the place, and we've
I completely agree with what you're trying to say, but for me, the magic circle does not give. It's not an excuse to make other people or even yourself feel bad. That's the optimal play.
Yes.
But I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it, like, because it would make me feel bad. It would make them feel bad. It would make everyone else at the table feel awkward. Why do it? You know. So yes, it's less optimal, but it's less optimal for a game that I'm going to be playing for a couple of hours. Whereas it's more optimal for the friendships that I've built for months and months and years with these people. You know, I think Magic Circle is often used as an excuse, yeah, for people to do bad things.
I see what you're saying, and certainly there's a level of social rules which should override a magic circle no matter what. Like, if you drew a card in this and it said every time you draw a card, slap the person to the right of you, I hope that, you know, there is no such card in Yogi, but for the record, I would not ask Gigamic to print such a card. It's purely as a thoughts exercise, and yeah, I'm sure there's a game that does such things.
But if it says whenever you draw a card, hit yourself in the head, it's like, you know, that's different because you do it to yourself. Yeah.
But then I guess there's a question of responsibility as a game designer, and responsibility of thoughtfulness and consideration to the well-being emotionally of your other players, because it always comes down to the fact that the real world well-being trumps anything in the game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's you can extrapolate the discussion upwards to the conversation we were basically having about colonialism and all that. And yeah.
Salty Horse says that there's a lot of discourse about violence in games. I don't know what Last of Us 2 is,
but
game.
It's a video game.
Cool. Maybe I should have read up on it. But yeah, talking about how it's a cheap trick for games to force you to do a bad thing and then make you feel bad about it. Vom Krieg says it does depend on the game. Chess, you know that it's attrition and one person will win. And photosynthesis, I mean, talking about perfect information games, like photosynthesis is such a brutal game. Have you played this, Calvin?
No, but I know it's hard.
It's really brutal. It looks like a beautiful game. It's light, it's fluffy, it's about growing trees, but it is super brutal because nature is brutal. And if you get in someone else's light, then you're going to have all the energy points. They're not going to have the energy points, and then your engine will run away. And then other people, and yeah, it's about it's not about trees providing shade, it's about trees blocking your light. And yeah, it's about setting those correct expectations so everyone so it's not just about consent, it's about informed consent. A game, to my mind, should tell you upfront what it's about, and that's why I feel like what you talked about, Calvin, and also Train, is a little bit of that crossing of boundaries. And talking about cards, and Will Cook says that some of the cards in Mountain of Madness cross the personal boundaries. With a card, cards have the ability to add rules to a game. Cards have the ability to say, okay, actually, this is a new thing that you do. And so, yeah, there's a lot of, stuff of responsibility from the designer's point of view.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So this is circling us back to the writing thing, because it's like you said, you would never write a card that says hit another player. But that's part of the writing in games. Even if you don't hire an external writer, it's something that you as a games designer have to think about when you create the word on the card. For sure. I leaf every spring. That's terrible.
So let's get back and try to do a quick whistle-stop tour, if we can, to summarize some bullet points. So how can writing, setting aside the marketing, setting aside the rules, how can fiction writing be good? I guess it gets you gets you
you have
more
to
info.
really think about your game and what you're asking your players to do, what the mechanisms are, what the story behind the mechanisms are, what you're requiring your players to, how you frame the experience for your players, right? Because the Santa Maria example is perfect. You can frame it as a game of brutal settler colonialism or growing a nice garden, which, one is better.
And for pros, I guess, yeah, like setting obviously colonialism and the topic and the fiction of what you choose for the game is a key point. But in terms of the quality of the writing, it can bring you into the world, it can flesh out the world, it can make you feel like the game is a living, breathing thing, it can make you appreciate the real world. It can, like in the topic of something like Wingspan, where having those little facts about the birds, which is completely superfluous about the game, it makes me realize, oh wow, birds do some pretty cool things. And that is there anything that we've not covered?
I mean, we can talk about other stuff. We're going to be revisiting the topic of writing for other things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And pitfalls, how it can be bad. I mean, there's so many ways, but we've talked about how it can be damaging to the real world, damaging to people's, worldviews, but also it can, with bad writing, it can maybe make your game feel like, hey, you've got to make sure that there's the tone matches the mechanics. I would say fundamentally that is a key issue. And if we finally go into one or two tips from you, Calvin, how would you suggest people going about making that good stuff? By stuff, I mean writing or fiction or flavor text.
That's a big question. That's a big question. I think it's too big to do. We could do another version where we talk specifically about how to write fiction, because this conversation was mostly about the framing, right?
Yeah, it feels like this has almost been the framing, introduction to writing and fiction.
Yeah, for sure. It's not even the introduction. It's so key, right? It's like, I think, level 0. Like, it's so important to think about when you start writing for a game. That you have, it's sort of pre-writing, if you will. But yeah, we will come back. We will talk about, once we've agreed that we're not going to write about this, we're not going to write about that, then we will talk about, how to write good flavor text and how to write good rules and how to write good marketing copy and all that kind of thing. For sure, yes. I think we should have that as a whole separate episode.
Yeah, it's been amazing having you on. Let's move on to the end of the show where, as usual, I start talking about what are some things that we're looking forward to and what are daily hopes and ambitions. As always, feel free to contribute in the chat. Let us know what you're looking forward to and the daily hopes and ambitions. Basically, yeah, and we will be back in a couple of weeks to chat about this. I'm almost sad that it's not sooner. It feels so far away now.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah. So looking forward.
I can start.
Sure.
Cross off at least one thing from my daily bullet journal list. Oh God, I know that feeling. I'm looking forward to making dinner. I'm gonna make some food, eat some food finally, and make some chicken. Probably do a rendang. I have like some packet rendang. I'm not gonna make it from scratch. Just pour the powder into the thing. Yeah.
Oh, I am. You know what? I'm looking forward to seeing Chris, because I think I'm going to see Chris in a few minutes. And that's really always nice, because Chris and McCall are the two people that I see. And I don't know if Chris is outside my room now and they can hear, or are normally in the garden at this point. But yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to. And what I am hoping for is to get the puzzle rules finally in a state where I'm happy to kind of send them off to people and start the final playtesting in time for 1st of August, which is when it's going. It's not playtesting for the game. The rules are fixed. I'm not changing any of the rules. It's been fixed for like over a year now. It's just getting every word nailed down. Do you know what I mean? And
sure.
Do you have any daily hopes, or does it tie into that cooking?
I don't know. Today I'd like to sleep earlier and wake up earlier. I guess that's my hope.
That sounds like a good aim. It's really lovely to hear that it's been good company, and all the best with the jobs that you're applying for.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Honestly, lots of love to you, Xate, and yeah, all the best with surviving. I know that things are a bit rough, but yeah, I'm super excited to read up on your remaining roles, although that isn't an invitation to kind of tell me about them right now, because I've got so much to do in the next 2 days. Thank you, Nick. And if you want to check out Calvin, then Twitter link is down there. What? How did you get that name? I never asked you. What's that all about?
Okay, so in 2004, a game came out called World of Warcraft.
Yes.
You may have heard of it. And I spent a very long time coming up with a name for my character in the game. And that was the name of my character in the game. If you Google it, it's the only thing you get is me.
And yeah, so it's just been basically this World of Warcraft hangover that stuck around for a while. Fair. If you want to check me out, I'm just spamming you with all the links. Here it comes. It is all that stuff by Bez basically everywhere. I'm not even going to bother reading it out today. Okay, go on. Stuffbybez.com, twitter.com/stuffbybez, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbybez, facebook.com/thingsbybez. I need to change that stuff if I can. Stuffbybez@gmail.com. And as always, thank you to everyone. Please share and stream the word, spread the word. My next streams are going to be tonight at 8 p.m. We're going to play How Much Money and Micro Muckle, and someone is going to win some prize things. I do sketches on demand, or basically you can either pick your subject and I choose the colors, or you can choose the colors and I draw you a cat, or you can get a game if you're in the UK. Because if it's like abroad, like to Malaysia, I'm sorry, it's just too expensive. I can't be giving those prizes away every week.
For sure.
Then I am doing the 10 a.m. thing. Tomorrow I'm chatting about the Eldex. Saturday I'm reviewing my week. And Sunday I'm having Catherine on to talk about their edible dice, which is going to be exciting. And
edible dice, oh my god. When I was a child, I used to put dice in my mouth all the time. And clearly we've evolved to the point where people just have given in to that impulse completely. Okay, cool. I don't know if it's a good trend, but it's a trend.
Oh no, it's not Crafting Jones. Sally's going to be on another day. Actually, Sally's going to be on. What have I not got it here? I was sure I made a date with Sally Jones. Oh, here we go. Wednesday. Sally's on next Wednesday, but Catherine is a totally different person. So this is Catherine Morgan from Honey Badger Games, Edible Dice. But as always, thank you everyone who joined in. Thank you, Xate. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Vomkrieg. Yeah, thank you, Salty Horse. Thank you, Aquasulis. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, it's lovely to have you. And it's lovely to see you pop in, Ross, who's been amazingly successful in everything that are doing, it feels like. And yeah, does some lovely stuff. And thank you, Robin, for popping in. It is oh there we go. Craig from 3 Minute Board Game says their friend bases a game based on how likely kids are to eat pieces. I think it's been a great chat. We've talked about colonialism, we've talked about mindfulness, and I think that is the most important thing. Mindfulness of your topic, mindfulness of what are you even going to put on the page, what theme are you setting? I think that's what you're getting at, isn't it? And most importantly, thank you, Calvin. It has been super lovely to have you with us.
It's been lovely to be here as usual.
Do you have any final words?
Have a great day, everybody.
Oh. Well, the only thing left to do is to say bye, 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 bye. This is a bye-bye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is the goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.